Come with me as I absolutely transform this vintage secretary desk into a one-of-a-kind liquor cabinet. I had a custom client reach out with some inspo pics that she wanted to transform the secretary desk into, and I said I will give it my best shot. So I started out with a deep clean because this is definitely an older piece that has had a life already. I used Fusion Mineral Paint's TSP alternative to clean it, and then I took off all of the hardware. I always make sure to put it all into one baggie and put the client's name on it just so I don't misplace any important screws or anything that I'll need when I put everything back together. And now sometimes with older pieces, I'll keep the hinges on just because getting the realignment perfectly when I'm putting it back on can be difficult, but I was pretty confident this one would be straightforward. Then I got to work sanding down that front piece that folds down. I started out with 100 grit sandpaper, then went up to 150 and 200 grit because we are sanding it bare. And then I moved on to the body, which I was just scuff sanding because we're going to be painting that, except for on top there where I am going to be trying to get it down to the bare wood as well. So just moving through those same sandpaper grits so that I can get it nicely soft and stripped. The finish on top was a little bit thicker, so I went in with my carbide scraper to scrape back the old finish before going in with those sandpaper pads just to finish it off and make it all smoothed out. And I always like to remind people that these are time lapses. This process does not go this quickly, so if you're going to be sanding something for yourself, just be prepared to put some time in. I then got to work ripping out those inner cabinets because the client wanted them gone so that we would have some more space, and luckily she didn't want to retain them, so I could kind of make them look like this. It took a while to get them out. They were very well glued in, but I was happy to see them go. I had lots of methods for doing this, but eventually this seemed to be the most effective to kind of get it wedged in there and then peel it up in small pieces because, again, it was very, very gluey. Then I grabbed that carbide scraper again. If you don't have one of these and you do furniture makeovers often, grab yourself one. It makes it so much faster. You have to put a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears into it, but so much faster. And then because we're going to be turning these bottom portions into shelves and not drawers, I just took out these slides and then picked out some of these boards for putting shelves here and here. And I put some tape over the line where I wanted to cut it just so it wouldn't be, so it would be like a nice line once you cut it, because if you're going right into the material, you never know, it can kind of like eat away at it, especially because I'm new to power tools. And then I needed to get the support out, so I just grabbed my jigsaw and cut it down the center and then pulled it out, and those staples came out easily. I was very happy that this worked out the way it did. And now for stain. This Varathane oil-based stain in the color English Chestnut. It always works. It always bangs. It's perfect. So good for so many projects. Highly recommend. And my client picked out this pressed fern, which is like an emerald kind of jewel tone from Fusion Mineral Paint. Absolutely gorgeous. I was so excited because I haven't used it before and it looked so good. You do have to build this color up a bit. I would say I did at least 3, probably 4 coats of paint to get it full coverage, but once it's there, it's so, so good. So we decided to paint the full body, and again, you want to make sure, especially if you're doing this for a client, but even if you're doing it for yourself, you want it to be as good as possible. Make sure you get the underneath and all the nooks and crannies, just so everything looks super seamless. And then I also did the edges of where we're going to put this peel and stick wallpaper, just in case I didn't get right up to the edge, you wouldn't be able to see that backing on the edges there. My client picked out this peel and stick wallpaper, which I was so excited for because I always see people using this and I haven't ever used it on a project, and it is as gorgeous in person as it looks on Instagram. Can confirm. I basically went through and dry measured everything and got the pieces cut down vaguely to the size that I needed, and then used a credit card to smooth it out, and then went through with a razor blade and an X-Acto knife right here just on the edges to make sure everything was super smooth and there wasn't like any pieces kind of sticking up over the edge, if that makes sense. Just go slow and work in little sections and everything will work out, basically, is my recommendation. And then a sexy little tape peel, because you always need at least one of those. And because I love you so much, I actually gave you 2 of them, so there you have it. Alright, and then I had some of the wallpaper left, so I figured I might as well do the backing on the shelving part and the underneath. It will be covered by doors, but it's a nice little fun pop when you open up the doors. And this is how she was looking. So far, so fucking good. Love it. Super happy with it. I put those shelves in, and I'm going to attach those with the LePage No More Nails. adhesive. I just got a bunch on there, set it down, and then put basically a bunch of heavy things on it, which happened to be a bunch of alcohol, which will be going there eventually. Then for the hardware, I use this Krylon metallic spray paint in the color Brass. It's the closest brassy thing I can find to the Rust-Oleum one I used to really love. So I did that to all the hardware, but it was looking so good. And against that jewel tone, looked especially good. And then after adding a top coat over that stain, it was time to reassemble. Work smarter, not harder. You can see how I'm just supporting this on the desk that I had nearby after I got that propped up to help me out. And I decided to put a little riser in the top part so that if my client had like multiple layers of bottles that she was wanting to show off here, or like other bar accessories, that they would be a little bit different in height. So just colored that, or painted that the same pressed fern color, put a top coat on it, and then glued that in there while getting rid of any excess glue, although it will dry clear. I got that pressed down. So then we got to the hinges. Honestly, making the doors was fine. I just used particle board, but here was the first attempt to put on the hinges. Obviously did it backwards because why wouldn't I? And then after a misalignment issue, got it all corrected and put the hardware on. I just put toothpaste on the backs of the holes of the hardware and press it on there once I see that it's level. Just saves you the step of having to mark the holes and then drill it in. I don't know. Okay, and then a reminder of where we started at the beginning of this project. A secretary desk that was in great shape, but wouldn't necessarily be ideal to hold a bunch of alcohol. And here is how she turned out. I'm sure she looks much better in her home, but I was so happy with how this turned out, and more importantly, the client was as well. We ended up adding a custom wine rack in there afterwards as well. So we ordered some wine racks off of Amazon, added those in, and so now she has a little shelf for that as well. I learned a ton during this flip, so as a reminder, if you're someone that does furniture flips as well, step outside your comfort zone. If you think that you can figure it out, say yes to those requests that seem like they might be out of your reach. You can totally do it. I believe in you.